Good day, everyone. Today we'll be discussing on family firms, internationalization, and national competitiveness. Does family matter, firm prevalence matter? I'll be discussing this with my fellow group mates Saidul Abra and Benedicta Adu.
Hello everyone, this is Group 1 and myself Saidul Abrar and my fellow group members are Elijah Jai and Benedict Ado. So today we'll be talking about family firms, internationalization and national competitiveness, and we will also try to answer the question that does family firm prevalence matter or not. So in this presentation, we will try to answer the question of family firms and their capacity for internationalization and link it to the literature on national competitiveness. So we will revisit the question of family firm internationalization capacities and evaluate it using the lens of Michael Porter's landmark study, The Competitive Advantage of Nations, which was initially published back in 1990, and its extension and empirical refinement in the Global Competitiveness Index. So Porter pointed to the interaction between country-specific factors and firm strategy and structure as drivers of national competitiveness. And we developed this part of model by exploring the impact on country competitiveness of cross-country differences in family firm prevalence, measured as the extent to which a nation's firms are comprised of family-owned and controlled firms. So the presentation will proceed as follows. The next section, we will review Porter's ideas regarding international competitiveness, and we then consider the family firm internationalization literature, differentiating between exporting and outward FDI as internationalization modes in order to arrive at our conclusions regarding the international capabilities of family firms and the impact of family firm prevalence on national competitiveness. We will also discuss the methods and data used to test our hypothesis, and then we will present the results. Whether and to what degree family firms are able to successfully develop internationally competitive strategies is an open question in the literature, and several recent literature reviews published conflicting theory and expectations. So it is perhaps unsurprising that several recent literature reviews on the FF internationalization relationship find mixed and inconsistent evidence regarding family firms and their internationalization capacities. However, there are some certain advantages of family firms. These includes efficiency advantage regarding export activities, relational ties are the strongest, and domestic sticky network ties and well establishment in home market. However, other family farm business scholars provide a more important view of family firms' capacity to develop internationally competitive capabilities. According to these perspectives, FF do possess characteristics that can in principle be translated into success abroad, including long-term orientation and ability to support innovation, particularly when part of a business group, and a capacity for using social capital to effect international strategy, often in countries where institutions are weak. However, there are some certain disadvantages of family farms. So a significant strand of the literature identifies several factors that could disadvantage family firms in their quest to success internationally. So some of these are their failure to professionalize management, their unwillingness to adopt efficient management practices, and concerns that internationalizing will erode family socio-emotional well. Also, they are unwilling to allow outsiders into the organization and their incapability of managing complex organizational structure. So, Porter introduced the now familiar diamond model, suggesting that Country-specific conditions such as factor endowments, demanding consumers, and clusters of supporting industries interact with firm strategies and structure to determine the export and outward FDI performance of domestic firms. Under Porter's leadership, the diamond model became the theoretical basis for the GCI, which introduced a more finely grained framework incorporating 12 country competitiveness driver, including the quality of institutions and infrastructure, market efficiency, human capital, and financial market development, and several business sophistication indicators such as firms, control of international distribution, firm innovation, firm reliance on professional management, and the state of cluster development. Porter argued that the international competitiveness of a nation's firms is reflected in their participation in the global economy through trade and investment, and he proposed that the best measures of international competitive advantages were either the presence of substantial and sustained exports to a wide array of other nations or significant outbound foreign investment based on skills and assets created in the home country.
Foreign direct investment is a purchase of an interest in a company by another company or an investor located outside its borders. FDI may include, but not limited to capital, provision of management, technology, equipment, etc. Export is the sale of products and services in foreign countries that are sourced or made in the home country. In this section, we develop the argument that the ability of family firms to engage in two distinct types of internationalization, thus exporting and outward FDI, is quite different. Based on the transaction cost theory of family firms, it possesses both competitive advantages and disadvantages that shape the kind of organizational structures and activities they are capable of managing. We reason that, other things being equal, family firm structural capabilities are best adapted to an exporting strategy of internationalization, but are likely to present obstacles with respect to outward FDI. We begin with the logic of our argument regarding outward FDI. The international business literature suggests that the ability of a firm to successfully engage in and manage outward FDI depends on the firm's capacity to develop firm-specific assets that can be transferred abroad. The ability to produce abroad requires high level of business sophistication with respect to internal management processes, management of international distribution channels, and the capacity to innovate to create firm-specific advantage. However, for several reasons, family firms often lack these capabilities, notably with respect to management. Firstly, family firms are noted for their reluctance to trust and delegate responsibilities to professional managers and other experts, technical and research staff, which subsequently harms their ability to compete in industries characterized by global scale and scope. Consequently, family firms have difficulty in recruiting and retaining the skilled and professional human resources needed to manage international organizations and broad value chains. Secondly, evidence from multiple countries suggests that family managed firms, especially when the eldest son occupies the CEO position, tend to adopt unsophisticated management practices with respect to goal setting, production management, and attracting and retaining high quality employees. Thirdly, family firms have shown to underinvest in technological capability, which can deprive the firm of the resources needed to pursue innovation and harm development of specific advantages. All of these factors suggest that Family firms, on the average, are less able to develop the organizational capabilities or firm-specific advantages required to become successful foreign investors. Moreover, some of the competitive capabilities often ascribed to family firms can actually be disadvantageous in managing FDIs. For instance, close contacts among family members promote immersion, learning by doing, and observation, and facilitate intra and intergenerational transmission of tacit knowledge, including an understanding of family members' performance capabilities. However, tacit knowledge is sticky to individuals, and effective transfer across geographic boundaries require knowledge to be codified, since codified knowledge enables high fidelity replication of organizational routines. For all these reasons, we argue that compared with non-family firms, the typical disadvantages attributed to family firms work against the creation of organizational structures and processes that will support the creation of complex, interdependent value chains necessary for the effective management of FDI, and some of the advantages of family firms in terms of tacit knowledge work in the same direction. Moreover, changing patterns of international trade may provide family firms with new international opportunities. In many industries, globalization of production has established a new international division of labor organized into global commodity chains, what Berkeley in 2009 has called the global factory. In what he characterized as the integration of trade and the fragmentation of production, Fenstra in 1998 documented that the decline of vertically integrated mode of production as firm-specific value chains were sliced up and relocated according to cost and factor availability. This mode of organization has been described as flexible specialization and viewed as a new paradigm of small-scale industrialization in an era of outsourcing and the hollowing out of vertically integrated firms. We implied that these types of activities, which typically involve export products, are well suited to the capabilities of family firms. With a focus on Chinese family firms, researchers suggest that one unique ownership advantage of these firms is the ability to do business in environment where personal relationships and relational contracting are important and is best exploited through international trade. At the same time, these same advantages limit the size of the firm and its ability to coordinate investment activities across borders. Although these studies focus on Chinese family firms, a recent survey suggests that their characteristics could be generalized, as recognized by Downing in his work in 1995 and 2008. We also note that in many of these emerging markets, the small family firms that began life as manufacturers and exporters have expanded not by internationalizing their founding businesses, but by diversifying into other lines of activity, thereby creating diversified business groups, many of which have remained geographically focused on their domestic markets. However, we conclude that family firms are well positioned to internationalize their activities through low-cost exporting and by accessing international markets through global community chains and alternative external mechanisms, but are less likely to be able to organize themselves to create and control global factories. In brief, we argue that family firms are particularly advantaged with respect to exporting, but less well suited for a high levels of coordination required for an extensive outward FDI.
So the literature of family firm internationalization is focused on the firm level of analysis, but in this study we take a different approach by focusing on country level measures of international competitiveness and consider the moderating effects on family firm prevalence on factors associated with exports and outward FDI. To explore these relationships, we propose that family firms have certain characteristics that provide advantages and disadvantages with respect to foreign market entry modes. In particular, we expect that compared with other types of firms, family firms will enjoy efficiency advantages with respect to export-related activities and, contrarily, relative disadvantages in managing more complex organizational structure associated with foreign direct investment. Therefore, we hypothesize that with respect to our measures of international competitiveness, family firm prevalence will negatively interact with GCI competitiveness drivers to depress national levels of outward FDI, but will interact positively with competitiveness drivers to enhance export performance.
Family firm prevalence as a ratio between the number of publicly listed firms identified as family firms in the respective countries and the total number of publicly listed firms in the same countries. These are the data sources that we used, and the measurements were based on populations of publicly listed family firms, which may not be the representative of family firms prevalent within particular countries, to the extent that smaller unlisted firms tend to be family owned. Nevertheless, data availability typically means that most study they rely on the measures of family firm prevalence that are based on firms which are publicly listed. Now, the issue that was faced during this study is because the owners of publicly listed firms can be difficult to identify, since ownership may be held indirectly or through third-party nominees, which can be difficult and time-consuming to determine firms' ultimate beneficial owners and whether they are related through kinship. And also, studies using publicly listed firms they rely on different definitions of what constitutes family ownership and control. So for the final approach and the different models that were applied, a novel approach was used to generate a unique family firm prevalent data set across country based on extracting the data from other studies. This was explored using two major electronic databases, which is the ISIS Web and the Google Scholar. The combining together of several terms that was relative to the topic of interest, and the strategy helped in identifying published and unpublished studies that were used generally for this novel approach. Then the samples were calculated using four types of derivatives, which are the firms with significant degree of family ownership measured by either voting or cash flow rights. The second is firms with a significant presence of family members in top management positions. And the third is firms with a family presence in ownership and family members in top management positions. While the fourth one was firms with a family presence in ownership or management. This table is talking about the country level factor and family prevalence on exports, which showed that there is a negative and a statistically significant data. However, considering the interaction term, the total events effect of innovation on exports is positive, when family firm prevalence is slightly above the mean. That means countries where innovation performance is lagging, they may still be successful exporters in the presence of large numbers of family firms. And this also means that the same thing is true for other GCI variables which have negative signs. The findings described provide consistent evidence that country-specific factors are supportive of export and are strengthened in the presence of high levels of family firm prevalence. Now, the result indicates that when an economy has a substantial population of family firms, then the country competitiveness, there are drivers with respect to export of performance. So, therefore, the findings, they are robust to a battery of an alternative estimations, providing support for the view that the distinctive international advantage of family firms are to be found in their capacity for production, efficiency, and the organization of short and relatively simple value chains. Since there is a trend towards outsourcing and global dispersion of production, it has accelerated, and the trend has provided opportunities for family firms to participate widely in global supply chains, primarily as producers rather than originators and orchestrators. The competitiveness drives to FDI, which is foreign direct investment performance, that they are not the most part weakened in the presence of a substantial population of family firms. The results suggest that family firm prevalence has a null effect on the competitiveness drivers of outward foreign direct investment, which means that an outward FDI in a significant way implies that family firms are neither better nor worse than other types of firms in supporting foreign investment, and thus finding no evidence to support the view that family firms are uniquely disadvantaged with respect to outward FDI. The null finding reported here implies that there is the ability to organize and control global value chains, which is not necessarily related to ownership identity, or possibly that different type of firm engage in outward foreign direct investment for different reasons. When family firms are prevalent, there is reasonable probability that at least some are engaged in foreign direct investment activities. In this regard, we can say that family firms may suffer certain common identified disadvantage in managing foreign direct investment. They may equally possess compensating advantages that have not been identified in the existing literature. For example, family firm strategic conversation is always in respect to internalization, which arises from the social emotional wealth, and they may be offset by family firms, longer term investment horizon, and parsimony with respect to asset utilization. This argument is advanced in recent studies that suggest family firms enjoy an advantage of converting scarce resources into fruitful and efficient innovation outcomes. And also, family firms may pursue foreign direct investment for reasons that differ from non-family firms. In conclusion, family firm internationalization with economic development and national competitiveness treats family firm prevalence that is measured at the country level as an element of a country's business structure based on the extent of the family firms. Also, the argument is being developed that family firms are more likely to support successful exporting strategies than successful investment strategies, and using this logic of aggregation, we can hypothesize that family firm prevalence would negatively moderate a country's factor supporting foreign direct investment and positively moderate country factor supporting exporting. Another point is country-specific factors trending export with high level of family firm prevalence. But at high level of family firm prevalence, it suggests that family firms are on average better suited to internationalization strategies based on exporting than to choose based on outward foreign direct investment. We also see that the approach does not lead itself to a more finely grained consideration of family firm strategies or to the manner in which family firms and country institutions can adapt and change over time. To wrap this up, I'll be discussing the application to the Canadian economy. Nearly 2/3 of all private sector firms in Canada are family owned. Family firms, they generate nearly half of Canada's GDP in the private sector, and also 99% of family businesses are small, medium enterprises, and they are considered the backbone of the economy. Family owned enterprises are a critical component of the Canadian economy. Drawing on the latest data from Statistics Canada, family-owned enterprises account for 63.1% of all private sector firms in the Canadian economy and generate 48.9% of Canada's real GDP in the private sector. At 574.6 billion US Canadian dollars, they also employ 6.9 million people across the country, which is equivalent to 46.9% of private sector employment. So we can see that in Canada, enterprises with family ownership have the largest footprint among firms with between 1 and 500 employees, which are considered to be small and medium enterprises. They account for 99% of all employees in Canada. So we can see that family-owned businesses have a great impact on the Canadian economy, and they are also responsible for the employment of Canadians and other people generally. So family-owned businesses, which is also known as family firms, are as important to the Canadian economy as they are to the rest of the world. Thank you.